Can we get full-time bully Aspinall after this smear campaign? How are you going to be on the comeback?
Right, when I come back, there is no more Mr. Nice Guy. Nice Tom. When it comes to MMA, he's gone, and I'm going full bad guy, I think.
What are you left feeling after the fight?
Well, look, if you were sidelined from doing your job for like 15 months, not allowed to do anything, you train your ass off for 6 months for a fight, then to get double eye pokes, be left with no vision for nearly 6 weeks because of an illegal move. How do you think I feel? I'm not feeling fantastic.
Tom Aspinall has finally spoken out, and the reaction across the MMA world has been explosive. This is a fighter who built his reputation on humility, professionalism, and pure heavyweight skill, yet now has reached a level of frustration that almost no one expected. The moment he addressed the situation, fans immediately understood this wasn't a calm, carefully worded media appearance. This was a man who felt disrespected, brushed aside, and deeply let down by the one person who should have been backing him the most, Dana White. According to Aspinall, the issue wasn't just that the UFC president questioned his durability after the fight-ending eye poke, it was the way the injury was dismissed. Instead of being treated like a serious medical emergency, it was downplayed, mocked, and brushed off as if it were nothing more than a mild inconvenience. For Aspinall, that reaction cut deep, and has now made it clear that he is no longer willing to pretend it didn't affect him. This was meant to be his defining moment, the breakthrough of the most complete heavyweight talent the UFC has seen since the prime of Cain Velasquez. Instead, the narrative shifted. The conversation turned into whether he quit, whether he folded under pressure, whether an eye injury that left him nearly blind for 2 days was really bad enough to stop a championship-level fight. That Aspinall's response to that debate has been firm. He didn't quit anything. He made a decision to protect his eyesight, his career, and his family's future. In the heavyweight division, a single blind spot isn't just a disadvantage. It can be the difference between chasing a world title and living with permanent, life-altering injury.
You know, something needs doing about it.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it's horrendous for me to look at that.
Stare at that. How is he not disqualified off that? It's outrageous. And then people start booing me like, my fault. Get double fault in the eye, mate. Just trained for 14 months. Trust me, didn't want someone's finger knuckle deep in my eye. It's the last thing I wanted.
What makes this situation even worse is that the one figure who could have shut everything down instantly, the man who sets the tone for how the UFC story is told, chose not to. Instead of backing Tom publicly, Dana White played it down and subtly suggested that he should have pushed through the injury. And that's where everything unraveled. For the first time in his career, Tom has openly admitted how angry this made him. Not just irritated, genuinely furious. Furious at the criticism. Furious at the lack of respect. Furious that fighter safety suddenly becomes negotiable the moment big money is involved. And especially furious that eye pokes, one of the most frequent and most dangerous fouls in the UFC, keep being brushed aside until someone's career is on the line. Tom pointed out the hypocrisy himself. If it had been a broken bone, a deep cut, or almost any other injury, no one would be questioning the stoppage. But because it involved his eyesight, suddenly everyone online became an expert. Suddenly toughness became the standard. Suddenly people acted like vision was optional. And the reality is, this isn't a new scandal. Eye pokes have been quietly wrecking careers for years. Top-level fighters and champions have all dealt with the same problem. No contests, surgeries, long-term visual damage, temporary blindness, permanent blur, torn corneas, retinal injuries. And through all of it, the UFC has refused to make meaningful changes to the gloves. Despite repeated warnings from medical professionals, veteran fighters, and former champions, the most criticized piece of equipment in the sport remains untouched. But here's where this story stops being just controversial and starts becoming explosive. In his frustration and disbelief over how this was handled, Tom Aspinall has now revealed something the UFC almost certainly didn't want public. He is seriously considering a move to boxing. Not as a distant idea. Not as a future fantasy. He's talking about the moment his UFC contract runs out. If things don't change, he's prepared to walk. That revelation stunned fans. Tom hasn't just been loyal. He's been the definition of a company professional for years. And yet even he has reached a point where boxing now looks more respectful, more financially secure, and ultimately safer than continuing to risk his eyesight for a promotion that didn't defend him when it mattered most. This isn't speculation anymore. This is a heavyweight star standing on a fault line. The Francis Ngannou effect is real. Fighters watched Ngannou leave, earn generational money, rewrite the rulebook, and prove that the UFC is not the only road to global superstardom. Tom Aspinall saw that too. And now, for the first time, he's openly weighing that same path.
CT and MRI confirmed orbital soft tissue trauma. Confirmed! This is confirmation, okay? Orthoptic evaluations demonstrated impaired binocular coordination and restricted ocular motility. This is what the scans are revealing, guys. That doesn't sound good. I feel weird celebrating this because it's like we were correct and we're not lying and we're not making shit up. But also it's like, oh God, we were correct. This is terrible. This is really bad. You know, so it's a weird in-between that I'm at. Bilateral traumatic Brown's syndrome. Tom Aspinall was poked and Cyril Gahn put his fingers in Tom Aspinall's eyes and Tom Aspinall got Brown's syndrome from it. I don't know if this is a symptom of Brown's syndrome.
I'd say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And Tom Aspinall right now is getting a lot of online. There's a lot of people supporting him, but there's also a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon and talking a ton of crap. And obviously John Jones, an incredibly popular fighter that's been around forever. He's one of the GOATs. You know, he's got a lot of fans. And a lot of people are going to get on the side of John Jones. Simple as that, because they're his fans. And Tom's English and he hasn't been around too long and all that kind of shit, right? But the reality is, he said that Tom Aspinall is incredibly overrated. And he's quite simple. All he has is a good 1-2.
He has a beautiful 1-2. I got to learn a lot about his patterns in his last fight. That's really about it. That's the one thing that he's setting up real nice.
That's it. That's all he's got. He's got a good 1-2. It's dangerous. He can knock people out. He got Curtis Blade with it. He did a bunch of other people. But if you've watched Tom Aspinall, you know that's not true.
When you put everything together, Dana's reaction to the injury, the backlash from fans, and the constant sidelining of fighters' safety, it suddenly becomes clear why Tom has publicly said he's exploring all options once his final 3 or 4 UFC bouts are finished. He understands his own value. He knows that boxing money can be life-changing. And he knows that heavyweight boxers can earn more in a single night than many UFC heavyweights make across their entire peak. While Tom weighs his future, Dana White is doing what he always does, minimizing the issue, brushing it aside, and acting as if there's no real problem. But there is a problem. A massive one. This situation didn't just strain the relationship between a rising heavyweight star and the UFC. It exposed a deeper truth fighters have been pointing out for years. Safety only matters when it's convenient. The moment Tom refused to stay silent, everything shifted. He didn't just speak up. He shattered the unspoken rule that UFC heavyweights are expected to endure anything, no matter the risk. And the second he pushed back, the MMA world saw how fragile the bond between fighters and promoters really is. When Dana questioned the seriousness of the eye injury, when he hinted that Tom could have continued, when he treated a potentially career-altering injury like a minor inconvenience, Tom felt the reality hit instantly. In the UFC, you're valued right up until the moment you threaten the main event. After that, The loyalty fades, the respect weakens, the safety talk disappears, and the blame lands squarely on the fighter. Tom has been clear about something else too. The criticism wasn't just unfair, it was dangerous. Fans calling him weak, accusing him of quitting, acting as if a heavyweight contender should fight while half-blind against someone like Cyril Gane. That level of thinking is reckless. Tom trains with elite boxers and world-class kickboxers. He understands combat at a level far beyond social media commentary. When he said doctors warned him he could suffer permanent vision loss if he continued, he meant exactly that. This wasn't about excuses. It was about protecting his career, protecting his eyesight, protecting his future, and his ability to watch his own children grow up. And that's why Dana White's reaction cut so deeply. Instead of explaining the severity of the injury, instead of shutting down the trolls and standing behind his athlete, his response came across cold, distant, and almost dismissive.
First got eye poked.
Well, I actually got eye poked twice in the fight. First one wasn't too bad. He got warned for it. The second one, obviously, Cyril Gane tried to make my head a bowling ball with the double eye poke, knuckle deep in both. So yeah, wouldn't recommend it at all.
How did you feel the fight was going before the eye poke?
I felt like the fight was going okay. It was going pretty much to plan. I think that, look, there was this big notion in the media before that I'm just going to run through Cyril Gane. Look, I might look like an idiot. Sometimes I might even talk like an idiot, but when it comes to fighting, I know what I'm talking about, and I know that Cyril Gane is a tough matchup for me.
That was the moment everything clicked for Tom. If the UFC won't stand up for its fighters in public, then why should fighters continue protecting the UFC behind closed doors? And that's exactly where boxing enters the picture. Loudly and clearly, Tom didn't bring up boxing out of anger. He didn't mention it out of bitterness. He mentioned it because the math is undeniable. Heavyweight boxing is a financial powerhouse. And Tom knows exactly what he brings to the table. High-level striking, sharp footwork, elite fight IQ, real size, real power, real timing, and most importantly, real name recognition. Boxing promoters aren't blind to that. Has already seen this movie play out. He watched Francis Ngannou leave the UFC, get ridiculed, doubted, and written off, only to step into a boxing ring and earn more in a single night than he made across his entire UFC run. Tom Aspinall understands what that means. He knows he's holding a winning lottery ticket in the heavyweight division. And the eye poke incident didn't just trigger frustration, it amplified everything. Because this wasn't just a random accident. It became a symbol of a much larger issue that the UFC has repeatedly refused to address. Tom went straight at it in his statement. The glove design, the lack of urgency, the complete absence of real preventative action. Fighters have been calling for safer, curved gloves for years. Trevor Whitman designed a safer alternative over a decade ago. The UFC has had every opportunity to adopt it. Instead, nothing changed. Same extended fingers, same eye pokes, same careers disrupted, and the same impossible choice forced onto fighters: risk permanent damage or get branded as someone who quit. Tom finally said what many others have been too afraid to say out loud. If the UFC refuses to take eye poke seriously, fighters will start taking their futures somewhere else. And he's right. This goes far beyond Tom versus Dana. This is about the message the UFC sends every time it refuses to address this issue head on.
Really good defensively. I knew that if we want to break the fight down a little bit, Cyril's got really good defense. He moves really, really well on his feet. I knew that I have to stand in range and take a few punches from Cyril to be able to land my own shots. We knew that. That was happening. I had a bloody nose. Look, any of my sparring partners know you only have to look at that thing.
I think it's a bit red now as well, isn't it?
It might be a bit red today, yeah. Got the old Rudolph thing going on.
It's not broken though, just to be clear.
No, my nose isn't broken, but I have broke my nose about 3 or 4 times in my life. So, look, touch me in the nose, it'll bleed. Yeah, nosebleeds happen in fights. Yeah, was he hitting me with a few jabs? Yes. Was I hitting him with a few shots as well? Yes. I thought it was going to be a 5-round fight. Go and look at my pre-fight stuff. I knew this was going to be a long and tough fight. I think that every fight I go into,
And I really respect my opponent, especially Cyril. I think there's this notion with the media and maybe the fans that Cyril's not very good, which is just complete bullshit. I think that he's really, really good. He's super talented. He's been at the top of division for a number of years, which is not easy to do. He's been an interim champion himself. He's obviously had 2 title shots for the undisputed title as well. So I think the guy's really good. I've took him extremely, extremely seriously. The fact that people expect it to be an easy fight, I don't read into that at all. I think I'm prepared for a really, really hard fight.
That was a lot of the take. Even if he is blind, he should fight on. Just go out there and fucking just geriatrically fucking look around the cage like Mr. Magoo, wondering where Cyril Gane is, while Gane just tees off on him with head kicks and wheel kicks and whatever he wants. And then if he would have lost by KO, no belt, Cyril Gane's champ, and I bet you anything people have moved on real quick by now. Gane versus Pereira sounds great. I'm already seeing those discussions now that we think Tom might be out for a little bit longer. That's 100% what the MMA community would have done. Not the real ones, but that's what people do. They just move on past that shit. Goes back out there blind, gets destroyed, gets finished, and then bang. We just move on. So annoying.
Tom Aspinall, arguably the most technically complete and dangerous heavyweight on the UFC roster, has now become the latest example of a completely avoidable injury that the organization still refuses to treat as a serious priority. But this time, the reaction has been very different. Because Tom isn't just another name in the rankings. He's viewed as the future of the heavyweight division. The most complete British heavyweight the sport has ever produced. The one many fans believed was destined to eventually take out John Jones. The one who carried himself like a champion long before any gold was wrapped around his waist at air, so the moment he publicly mentioned boxing as a real option, the fan base felt the shock immediately. Because losing Tom wouldn't just hurt, it would seriously weaken the entire heavyweight division. Especially with John Jones approaching the end of his career. With Stipe clearly on the way out. With Ngannou already gone. With Gane struggling for consistency. And with no new young heavyweight showing the same level of complete skill set that Tom brings, that's what gives him real leverage. And he knows it. He hasn't made threats. He hasn't declared war on the UFC. He hasn't announced an exit. All he's done is say the truth. I've got a few fights left. After that, we'll see. And that single sentence is far more powerful than any public ultimatum. Because behind the scenes, it creates real pressure, whether Dana White ever admits it publicly or not. Because the reality is simple. If Tom stepped into boxing tomorrow, he wouldn't be starting from zero. He would instantly become a major attraction. A legitimate crossover star. A heavyweight with skill, charisma, and credibility. Exactly what boxing promoters crave.
Does Tom want to go into the boxing world and maybe fight a Tyson Fury, maybe fight a Deontay Wilder?
I don't know if he does, but I think if you get into that top percentage of the sport, the UFC do not pay anywhere near as much as the boxing does. And I know, being around Tom every day, that when he spars good boxers, he spars good. So I think he'd do really well against a real high-class boxer.
With Zuffa Boxing under Dana White's leadership, do you think there could be an eventual crossover where you get a massive super fight that could be on a Netflix?
It doesn't depend on me, that depends on Dana White. But I think Tom has the ability, because I've seen him box at the highest level against some real good guys, that he could be at that level.
Said that you wanted a boxing champion.
Yeah, for sure.
You're okay with an MMA champion, but you wanted a boxing champion.
Boxing for sure. The money is
more money.
Yeah. More money. Why not?
Would that be an outcome for him? No.
He's 3 more fights on the contract now.
Okay. So
and I don't want to sign a new contract. We only ever think one fight. Cyril, win, lose, next fight.
I'm excited to say Andy told me Tom will be a boxing champion by 2028.
So for Tom, unfortunately, and even his dad said this, he's like, Tom has 3 fights left on his contract, and then we're going to get a boxing super fight. We're out of here. Because think about it. Well, let's say he beats Cyril Gane, right? So we're never seeing that again. Who else would you pay to see him fight? Now it's going to be free on...
Only John Jones. Only.
Yeah. So he has 3 fights left. So you're going to get Cyril Gane. He'll get the winner of Alex John, which happened at the White House. And then maybe fight if he loses that, which he will if it's John. If he were to lose that, he fights the loser of John versus Alex. Those are your 3 fights from Tom. And then you go to box, because let's say he re-signed for 6 fights. Who are you going to watch him fight? Volkov, already beat him.
Are you
Pavlich, already beat him.
Yeah.
Curtis Blades, beat him.
Yeah.
Almeida, he doesn't deserve to be in the top 5. Acosta, those top fucking, besides Curtis Blades, 2 through 15 aren't even in the top 25 of this 2015. So for Tom, he was born at the wrong fucking time.
And something else for me personally, like one of the reasons that I'm very successful with my style, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but because I'm very, very athletic for the size.
You are.
My balance is great. My agility is great. That is, as well as other things, but that is a big advantage that I've got in the heavyweight division.
Some reporters think that because I think that he should box because it's more money, that affected him in the fight. I've never heard as much as people saying what I say affects Tom in a fight. I say loads of things to loads of people. People who are around me all the time know that. Boxers are around me all the time. It's just because of the money. And it's the back to, if your son was a fighter, would you sooner fight for a ton of money or not a ton of money? It's a no-brainer, but people still have a narrative of...
Overnight, the narrative writes itself. The quiet, respectful British powerhouse who conquered the UFC, only to walk away for the riches of boxing after being publicly dismissed. That kind of storyline sells itself. It drives headlines. It fuels debate. It moves pay-per-view numbers without even trying. But here's the detail most people are missing. Tom Aspinall doesn't actually want to leave the UFC, but he loves MMA. He loves the art of mixed martial arts. He loves the fans, the grind, the evolution of his game, the entire journey that brought him to the top. But what he will not tolerate is being in a system that downplays his injuries, brushes off his pain, and questions his toughness when his career is on the line. And he made that crystal clear with the final line of his statement, the line that sent shockwave through the MMA world. I'll fight for the UFC as long as the UFC fights for me. That wasn't trash talk, that wasn't a threat, that was a line in the sand. Now the pressure shifts entirely to Dana White. Does he publicly support his fighter? Does he finally take the IPOC crisis seriously? Does he protect the future of his heavyweight division? Because if he doesn't, the UFC could be staring straight into the same nightmare it already lived through with Francis Ngannou, only this time, it's Tom Aspinall holding the leverage, the momentum, and the global spotlight.